All right, welcome back. So now that we're able to read from a database using any column that we choose to, that is all good. What we need to do now is to create our login and sign up system. So let me go to my user class here. Now that we have this function core here, all I have to do is delete these guys here because we don't need them. Now it's very important to keep commenting on your stuff. So like here, I will put something like that, just to make it look a bit nicer. And then I can put some commenting here that I want. Get data using provided column name. So it's a good idea to comment everything that you're doing, especially when you're a beginner, because for a professional, for example, me who's been doing this for many years, it's quite easy to see what's going on in the system here. But even then, if I come back a few years later, I may not understand what I actually did previously. So it always helps to have a few comments in there that are guiding you on what's going on. Especially when you have a live website, which, let's say for example, an e-commerce website where people are visiting very often and any problems need to be dealt with instantly. You need these comments because you will not always be there. Whoever is going to start maintaining that website might need some information on what's going on with each function, with each line of code. And so whenever something looks complex, just put some comments there just to remind you. So let's come back to the create here. So what are we going to need for our function create? Of course, we will need the data that is being supplied by the user, and we're going to send it, put it inside this variable we're going to call post. Not to be confused with the global variable that has the underscore. Remove that underscore there because using global variables is not a good idea because it becomes very difficult to know what the data contains in case you have an error and you want to figure things out. So it's always better to make your functions self-contained like this by giving them local variables. Okay, so at this point what we want to do is to go through the post there. Now, the things we need for creating a user here will be determined by what columns we have. So the columns we have here, we have username, we have email, we have password, and gender. Okay, so date as well. So username, email, password, gender. So let's add those guys here. So I'm going to create an array, and I will add those items to that array. Now, the reason I'm adding to this array is because I'm not using this one directly, is because this might come with extra data that I don't want to add to the database. So that's why I'm adding a new one here. So I can only pick what I need. So I'll say this one is username and get from username from there, like so. Now, no need to sanitize this data because we are using prepared statements, so this is okay. Usually a username, I like it when it has UC words like that to capitalize every first letter of the username. And let me duplicate that and remove the UC words here. I don't need that anymore. Now we can change that to email. Duplicate it once more, a few more times. Let's get to the password and let's get to the what else do we need here? Let me come back and check. So username, email, password, gender, and then date. So gender, I forgot this one. Okay, and then let's have a date. Now let's create the date. Obviously, we're going to use our usual YMD, hour, minute, seconds. And then we want the gender to be just like that, that, and that. So the only thing here we have to validate is the, yeah, let's do some validation. Validation. So first of all, I want my username to be validated. So I'm just going to say if empty. So if the username is empty, username, or now I don't want numbers in my username. So let me just use a preg match here, like so. Let's use preg match. So preg match, we have to supply a pattern here. So there is the pattern. We use those double slashes there. We'll put the pattern in between. And then the subject is this one, obviously. So I put that subject over here. And then I'll do that. Now, I'll put an exclamation point here because these are both negatives. If something is empty or it doesn't match a certain pattern, then let's create an error. So I want to have errors like that is equal to an empty array, like so. Okay. So all I need to do now is come down here and say errors, add to errors. Please enter, let's say something like username can only have letters and spaces, like so. Okay. So let's add the pattern here. So the patterns here, we have to put a caret sign like so to make sure that we read this from the beginning to the end. Okay. So beginning to end. Also, before I do UC words here, I want to trim this. Let me do trim. So the trim removes the trailing and the spaces on both sides. So trim is a good way to trim everything. I think it's important. We'll leave the password because somebody might want to use a space as part of the password as well. So let's just leave that if you are into such things. Okay, that's great. So we want to start from the beginning and the end, which means $sign. So $sign means end. So if you're matching something just on the end of it, you use the $sign. If at the beginning, you use this caret. But I want from beginning to end, it must have very specific characters, which is I'll put in this these square brackets. So these square brackets mean any of the characters in here are acceptable. Okay, so if I have a word like globe or glab, just those are not real words, but if let's say I want to match a word like globe or glab, like so, now I want you to match either of these two. So what I can do is just write something like globe like this, and then put those brackets for or, and then put a and o together like that, and put the b at the end. So what this means is that as long as it has GL and it can have either a or this one, and then it has b, it will match. So it's going to match this one and this one. So this is a similar thing we're doing here, only that I want it to match A to Z like so, and capital A to capital Z. I don't want numbers, so I'm not going to put numbers. If I wanted that, I'll put 0 to 9 like so. But I don't want numbers. What I want is spaces, so I'll put space like that. And that's it. So it should only match letters and spaces, otherwise we have a problem. Okay, great. So once we do that, we are good to go. And let's go and validate something else as well, the email. So let me change this. It's the username to email, and here they change the message. Please enter a valid email. So enter a valid email. Now, we don't need this pretty much on the email. We have some other means to do this, which is using filter var. So let's use filter var, shall we? So I'm going to say filter var. Okay. Actually, filter var on its own is sufficient. I don't need to check if it's empty or not because filter var will do that for me. So if not filter var, then we do that. Now, how do we filter this? We're going to filter the value, which is email. And then we have to add a flag here, which is filter validate and then underscore email. So if you see it change to italic like this, then you got it right. Okay, so filter var email and then filter validate email. And if that doesn't work out, you put a note here to make sure this only happens if it doesn't work out. Without this will happen if it's a valid email. All right, so now the point here is that you can add as many validation points as you want. Let's just do one for gender as well. Real quick here. Gender is very simple. We don't need any regular expressions or anything like that, anything fancy. All we need is to check if gender is equal to one or the other. So now the important thing is to make sure that, okay, let's just do what we do here. If is not equal to female, and it should be an and here, because if we put or, then we're going to have problems. So we put and it's not equal to male. So if it's not equal to either of them, then please enter a valid gender like that. Okay, great. So you can put as many as you want here and just keep going for as long as you add them to the error array. That is all good. So only thing we need to do now is save to database. Okay. Save to database. And then right here where we save to the database, we have to check if error is empty. So we check if count errors is equal to 0. So if there's nothing in that array, meaning no errors, then we are good to go. It's good practice to return something all the time. So I'll return false at the very end here. And then if things went well, I will return true. Okay, so if these things went well here, what I want to do now is save things. So what do I have in here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Very good. So let's create a query. And query is equal to insert into. So insert into users. The values will be, the columns will be there and the values will be here. And then after that, all I need to do now is run the query. So we have our users class here. But remember that in the DB class, we have this query where we can actually run an insert query. But there's select here. Let's see what else we have. Let me go down here. Where select update. I think you can have one insert as well to keep the tradition going. So I'm going to go down here and do this. What's up? Right. So I'm going to say insert right here. And then array values. So query type here will be equal to insert. And then the query will start with insert, of course. So what I'm doing here is I'm fabricating something here in advance, and which means we don't actually need the query over here. So remove that guy. So all we're going to do is one of these right here. So I'm going to copy this, put it there. Table is obviously users, and then instead of update, I'm going to have insert. And then instead of values, I'm going to have array, like that, because that's the one that contains the information I need. And then here, there's no where clause at all. The where clause is important on these other guys, but the insert doesn't have a where clause, so all that is not required. Okay, like so, like that. Okay, so return whatever is returned there. DB table uses insert. So it makes things quite easy, doesn't it? Alrighty then. So once we've done that, let's go back to DB class here and finish up with our insert proposition here. So insert into, so insert into, and then there's a table. We don't need set here. What we need is a for each loop that creates the columns, right? So I'm going to put the opening bracket here, like so. All right, so insert into table. What are the values? So first of all, let me duplicate this for each loop because I'll need it twice. So add the columns. Okay, just like that. Key value pairs. So for each values as key and value. So in here we're getting the key and the key. So instead of putting an equal sign here, we're just saying key, and then we put comma, space, and another key. But I don't need that for now, so let me remove all this actually. Just this key, like so. And then I need to trim that at the very end. So let me duplicate that, go back to the top. So once I finish adding these, I need to trim that comma. And then once I do that, again, I come back here and do the trimming here as well. So on the second one here, add the values, okay? So let me come back here for a second. Add the values. Okay, so values is equal to that. Now, before we add the values, we have to close this one here. So once we trim, then this query, concatenate. This here we are saying equal to, but we want to concatenate here to add to, and whatever is there, oops, I want to add a closing bracket, like so. So we close that bracket, and then we type values, and then we open another bracket, like so. So right there, then we can now add the values. So here, instead of keys, I'm going to add value. Actually, no, I will add key again. Only this time I will put this at the beginning. So let me do that. Let me remove the equal sign. I'll just put that, the key, and comma. And then again, comma, key, 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 just like that. Okay, so now that I'm done this query, I've trimmed that, and then obviously I need to close the bracket. So dot, I add to it, and let me do that. Close that bracket. Very good. Then this values is equal to values. Very nice. Now, yes, so once I do this, everything is done. I just need to run what I need to run. So where is the run here? So run is equal to, okay, wait, where is run? Okay, there we go. So once we begin to run things here, if the thing is equal to insert, which is here, actually there's nothing more we need to do. Once we prepare the query and then we execute the query here, all we need to do is if check, then we return true. That's it. So this already works as it's supposed to work because we don't need to retrieve any data from it. We just return that things actually went well. If not, this false will be returned. All right, so looks like we're actually good to go. The only thing is here, I have to tell it to run. So I'll do that and say run, like so. Okay, so db table insert run and done. Very good. All right, so in the next video, we're actually going to test this and see what errors we get and how to handle that. See you then.